Thank you.
So here we are and I really want to thank you both. But you brought in a very important question here that I've been pondering and wondering. That Brett, you started saying that there are both coins of the usage of AI. So here's a Harvard report. We're going to share this in the chat window, and I let you all take a look at this report. It very clearly says that this was a report, this was a study done alongside BCG on the productivity, and it's a great productivity study that you must take care that you must read. That there's a lot that you can do with AI. In fact, there is so much that no one can actually sit down in a forum like this in about 2 hours and actually pack it and give it to us. But there is something very important, that with automation comes automation. So if you put it on an automation mode and the human element is missing, well, that's something we need to ponder upon. But not to bring down the tempo, because we know on the other side we have AI in education, a dialogue to delivery. My two key points that I'm looking forward to hearing from our very dear friend David, whom I'm going to just introduce, is navigating conversation to practical ways of doing it. Honestly, we can talk about it the whole day, the whole year, but what are the practical implementations here? Number two, collaboration between industry and academia. David, I think there's a beautiful, a path that has been laid for you over here, because we actually had the industry and the education expert in the last session, and we're not looking at you to help us get a perspective with what is it that we can do. And for this fireside chat, please welcome with me David Hollands, who's going to talk to us about this topic. He's currently serving as the director at Empower Logic Private Limited and head consultant at Global Consulting Hive. David is a visionary entrepreneur, and I don't say that, I mean it. Brett and I have said enough earlier as well that we know the way we got guided by him. He's a consultant who's deeply dedicated to leveraging emerging technologies such as AI, VR, and biotech for transformation of education and society. And with a remarkable career spanning over 20 years in the tech industry, David has collaborated with giants like HP, where we met him, and where he held the former global education strategist. His extensive experience includes partnership with education, ministries globally, including India, as well as and the kind of knowledge that he has on Indian ministries, amazing. He can actually amaze you with that as well, and with the UN, agencies and organizations to harness the technologies for human capital development. Thank you, David, for being here. And with you in the room, I don't think you need me. So please take it away.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to start by saying, just on this topic, that when I think about the world and what matters to us living in this world and the future of it, education has a very special place in my heart. And every one of you on this call are literally superheroes for the future. Why is that? Because when we think about all of the humanity, when we think about our country, when we think about our communities, it's built upon the pillars of family, right? Deep down at its roots, the transformation happens there. So those children that are coming through into your schools, into the education system, they are being nurtured and grown at the basis and the level of families, which is why schools have almost like a DNA or a fingerprint that's very unique to their community, because their families are very unique. But this question of AI really kind of how we want to see the world. I would lead with the statement that it is transforming all of society at every level. As Meenakshi sort of touched on, I'm working intimately on projects that cross over really interesting fields that are deeply leveraging specific AIs. So doing things that were impossible, and there's so many of them happening right now. So the reality is we're right in the middle of a wave that's growing bigger and faster, and that is transforming society. So maybe to lead in from the previous session, if AI is the answer, what's the question? There are questions like, so who will ultimately decide what AI will be doing in the future? And guess what? It's you. It's your students. And that's what we want to happen. But if I put a little bit of context in for us about firstly how exciting and how daunting this is, number one, those massive transformations about AI, which ultimately is a technology that's what we call omni-use. It means it can have really awesome things that it does. And just like nuclear energy, it has a dark side to it as well. So there's this sort of need to constrain it. So it's omni-use. It's out there in the world. But we have a particular situation right now. And that particular situation is the smallest, tiniest numbers of human beings are currently deciding what it's doing. And what it's doing is fundamentally shifting the fabric of our entire planet. And that's a good thing. But the not so good thing is we have the tiniest percentage of people on Earth kind of responsible for that. And so in a way, we've got a huge call to action for education. And if you're wondering what that call to action looks like, well, hopefully really good, because it places you front and center as educators, as the most valuable resource that we need. We won't find an answer in AI, I can tell you that. The people responsible for this discussion are already saying things like, we absolutely, the latest report we had in World Teachers Day is we will need somewhere near 44 million new teachers globally by 2030. By 2030, we also have a rather dire situation in terms of data science related jobs. A shortfall of 85 million jobs in those fields are predicted, which represents something like $8.5 trillion minimum. It's probably more than that. So with that said, even today, there's about 500,000 jobs, which represent something like $560 billion in unfilled positions. So we have right now, as dumb as our AI might be, or as people might say, as primitive as it may look, it's constrained by education. So there's this enormous call and an opportunity, especially for India, which is, by the way, my favorite country outside of my own because it's so special, to transform how we understand AI and begin the process of including our students, and especially our educators, in understanding what AI is capable of doing, and being the originators of the requirements and demands to come up with solutions leveraging the technology. So that's my first practical step, is to see some of the things that have been highlighted already. So these challenges that teachers face, and as I said, there are 44 million teachers needed by 2030, new teachers. That's largely to address teacher capacity, something that India knows a lot about and is doing so much work to address. But in India, you have this, and it represents itself at all sorts of levels. It could be the levels of teacher training and support. It could be simply not having enough teachers, and that's a big problem. So if we were to begin the conversation with practically how do we start to engage with questions and the topic of AI in our classrooms, there's this incredible opportunity to start talking about it as something that can drive engagement, just as we've used the SDGs, in creating lessons around it, which, by the way, are going to help bring our children into the dialogue. And as we have the Convention on the Rights of the Child, they are the least represented and the most affected by policies us adults are making out in the world right now on AI. So everything that we're doing just to introduce our children at whatever level to the notion that the world is changing very rapidly, and for them to be included in that is the first practical step. The good news is it's so exciting. It does make for rather an engaging classroom lesson, as I'm sure some of you might have already started to introduce it. So I think that's the first step. And that's a step that we need to bring to all of the people in our nations. so that they can participate in the democracy equally. So that's kind of a beginning point, and we need that in a scalable way. And as an aside, I will say the reason why it's so wonderful for teachers to have a voice in and also with their students represent their voice for what we want in the classroom, what we want in our education system, is because currently there isn't any real AI. You might be talking about ChatGPT and LLMs, large language models, that you might be trying to adopt and use and kind of integrate into the classroom to help you, but they were never designed to be used that way. And one of the critical things about data science is we absolutely know that those very small number of humans who are data scientists are 100% clueless when it comes to the verticals and the solutions they create. They rely very heavily on having good models and good information prior to doing their magic work, which is so valuable, right? So there's this incredible opportunity for every one of us to begin to engage in what is going on, what is AI, and have those conversations, use them as topics for teaching math or exploring things like the environment, or looking for cross-curricular opportunities to use it as an engagement mechanism, so that our children are beginning to have a voice. And of course, we had a wonderful Microsoft speaker earlier, and they're exactly the right type of industry to be bringing these sorts of things. Here's what happens, for us as teachers. And this is what it looks like. These are ancient problems. And Brett mentioned before, we love personalized learning, we love blended learning, but until technology came along, it couldn't be scaled. So again, we know you're so wise in what doesn't work for teachers in the classroom. You're so wise in that. And that wisdom, that insight, and most importantly, the priorities that you can bring and say, this is the most important thing for teachers like me, bring those forward, because data science can leverage those requests and then craft things specifically for you. And again, there are some amazing big companies who are invested in education, like Microsoft and others, who you would be fueling to make things specifically to help you. And by the way, you'll be avoiding the pitfall, because some of these products, particularly large language learning models, or ChatGPT, they are intelligent, and their goal is to be equal to a human intelligence or greater than, if you look at things like AGI and other things. So we want to continue to develop human intelligence. By the way, the neuroscience and the data science confirms that teachers, by virtue of the fact that we need 44 million, because that's informed by what's happening in AI, by the way, there's no current view of human cognitive development that doesn't include other humans, because we have this thing called mirror neurons in your brain, which they found a few years ago, that require another human being to be in front of you to learn from. So good news, you're not going away. We actually need more of you. And I might suggest in the list of requirements and requests, and it was spoken about earlier, the demands on teachers that are crushing include things like curriculum demands, all those things that are outside the thing that is very important for you to be doing, things that you've got to do administratively. These are very good things to highlight, to say, please, is there a way that we can take care of the compliance and offload that, so that I'm able to do and focus on the core parts of the teaching that I know is what I need to get to. So, and by the way, we might also apply AI to raising the salaries of teachers, because I think across the earth, they're the hardest working people, the most important to the future. And my gosh, we don't pay them enough. So I think, again, AI has a perfect role to play in arguing and being an advocate for why the return on investment, when we pay our teachers better, train them better, look after them better, is actually good for the future of our country. So that's another one you can take away. So Meenakshi, what's our other question that we might have?
You know what? I think you've raised some very important and the right questions in the room. And with your perspective, I would say that you've actually opened a Pandora's box, and the
I tend to do that.
yeah, and I love the way you have actually been able to cover a gamut of things in just about last 10 to 12 minutes. And that's amazing. So, yeah, David, we look at you for advice consultancy because of the wealth of knowledge that you carry with you and the
So,
wealth of experience
yeah,
that you.
and I will say this, you know, what's important for us in education right now, as I said, there's, and look, a special place in my heart for India, and India has some amazing things written down in that, the NEP 2020, some incredible aspirations. And it also talks about having self-sufficient India as sort of a policy, which speaks to India being a powerhouse of technology and innovation. And I think coupled with the passion of the educators, which, you know, people have highlighted again and again, I've been so blessed to visit India multiple times and just encounter the educators that are joining us tonight and so many others who are just exploding with enthusiasm. They have such energy, such passion. And I see that, you know, providing India has this opportunity in front of them. They have the largest number of youth of any country in the world. And I'm excited if we can get AI happening in India, that we do this at a grassroots level, that a lot of that $8.5 trillion that's coming in 2030 will be in India. And what I know about that is that with those youth engaged, that will not only transform the beautiful country of India, but because of the sheer number of youth engaged in doing these things, the whole world's going to be blessed, right? So I think if we've got that kind of focus, we're in a good place. But again, I will say to you, this is a unique time in history where, because of AI and because there is a clear understanding of the importance and role of teachers in equipping and growing into these 85 million jobs. And you heard Microsoft earlier talk about the explosion of jobs. These are very different jobs, right? And they're very high value. And I'll give you one example of where the value of AI truly is. Now, we might think of OpenAI as being where ChatGPT resides, and Whisper and other forms of AI, which are very popular. It had a valuation a little while ago of $86 billion, and it's predicted by some to be the first $10 trillion company in a few years' time. But when they had this really interesting thing in the news where their CEO was sacked for about a week, they had 700 employees sign a letter saying they were going to leave. Now, there's only 770, and I think Microsoft were going to take them all. And if you missed it, the value of OpenAI is not ChatGPT or any of the things it's built. And this is really important for us to understand. The value is those people, because it is the humans behind it that are actually designing and engineering our future. And we've always been that way, right? So again, I think every classroom in India has opportunity to start just inspiring the little engineers of the future. And those little engineers are also going to be the ones who carry their ethics and their desire to do good in the world into these projects. And we need people who are not just experts in technology, but in all the important aspects of life, from growing food to caring for people medically, to, you know, making sure the world is a just place. Because all of these things guide the engineering that goes into the AIs that we build. So there you go. That's my takeaway. But every one of us on this call have an opportunity tomorrow to begin in an excited and enthusiastic way to start the spark in India and just bring that light and that enthusiasm, the awareness of AI and the world that's changing around us into our lessons. And of course, a big shout out to the maths teachers, because having done machine learning myself, so I'm sort of able to do some of that hands-on, it's all about calculus. So it's more or less calculus. So again, there's so much that teachers are going to bring to the future of the world. The whole future of how fast we adopt AI for good is 100% in our hands. So go to it, everyone. And like,
Yes.
bless you all for the work that you're doing. And if there's anything I can do to help, I'm here.
Thank you, David. And I think your enduring aspiration is going to be our roadmap for enhancing education and laying that foundation for a better world is what you have done for us. So thank you so much for that. In keeping with your idea of skilling up, tomorrow is the day two of Nurturing Education Summit, and we have a day packed of 5 hours of PD for educators. I would urge you to do join us.